Grace to you, Swift Turning Lane podcasters. I'm your host, Levon D. Lane III, along with my co-host, Tracy L. Swift. How you doing, Tracy? What's going on?
I'm good, bro. How are you doing on this peaceful Friday?
Oh yeah, doing great, doing great. Man, it's so far it's been exciting episodes and series for us. I'm looking forward to how we beginning to unpack a lot of things. And ooh, I know sometimes when we get to unpack things, a couple things can happen. You start to feel more rejuvenated. You feel a healing process coming along,
Mm-hmm.
and also it's good to release some of this stuff that we just held in, within ourselves for years, and just how God is just changing our hearts in the midst of this process. So as we continue in this episode, which is episode which one?
3B.
There you go. We in
Let's
three
think
B.
about like,
We in 3B, and before we get started with 3B, let's do a recap of 3A. Tracy, and from your ages of 21 to 30, 30-ish. And
right.
yeah, so we let's do that. And Tracy, you just gonna take over.
Well, how y'all doing today? So let me recap. So from the age of 21, broke up with my first boyfriend, went out the country because, I was heartbroken from somebody I was with since I was 16. Um, Came back in the country, started to live life again, working and that, things of that nature. Got my second boyfriend who ended up being a predator. He lived in my house. I booted him out. Um, then we moved on to drugs.
Mm.
Me being around wealthy people and seeing how wealthy people live. I mean, I've always had wealthy friends, but I never was really introduced to the drug aspect until, 23, 24, started doing cocaine. Had an incident where the provider of the cocaine that was providing everybody wanted to come after me. I didn't
Wow.
like that. So I stopped doing cocaine. Like, ooh, this ain't the drug for me. So that happened. I ended up dealing with ovarian cancer, had surgery, was told that we scraped your uterus so bad it's tilted now. You won't be able to have children on your own. If you do want to have children, you'll probably have to use IVF or a surrogate. Um, which in my head, I'm 23 years old. Like, life is over. Like, it's no point. On top of the trauma I was already dealing with, the depression, um, I was friends with the father of my child's sister. So, he and I at one point started hanging out. Couldn't tell you. Like, I told my bro, I think that was God's funny trick on me. Because I can remember everything in my life. That I just do not understand like, how we get to here.
Yeah.
um, End up getting pregnant at 25, had her at 25. Um, Found out the father of my child was still seeing the woman he told me he broke up with before he got with me, because I told him you can't be with me if you with somebody.
Mm.
So he was lying to me for 2 years, because before my daughter was born, I mean, not born, before she turned two, I found, and I told you before, Lord be letting me see things through phones. So I found out through his phone that he was still dealing with his current woman that he's been with for 16 years.
Wow.
As old as my daughter is, yes. And so, stopped dealing with him, was single for 5 years. And within being single for 5 years, I was introduced to sugar baby sites where, I was meeting different men who wanted, at the time, it was just conversation. I never met any of these men at the time. It was just conversation, and money was being sent to me via Cash App, Venmo, PayPal. And so, and then I also, let women specifically know that prostitution is not the way. You might not think conversation is a form of prostitution, but you're selling yourself for $1.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Regardless if it's conversation or not, you're being paid for that. So that is a form of prostitution. You might not look at it like that, but I'm gonna keep it 1,000. It is a form of prostitution
Mm.
because
Yeah.
you are selling yourself. And so that was the recap of what I went through from 21 to 30, 31. And we'll get into that later in another episode. But I'm going to turn it over to you, to one of my faves, Mr. Levon D. Lane the third, so you
Yeah.
can hear his story.
Yes, yes, let's get it. All right. So let's start our story. So with the continuation of from my childhood to the 20, early 21 range, 22 range.
Mm-hmm.
So let's begin. Let's start at Jackson State. Of course, once again, I had to represent Jackson State. And this is where I was at this time. Of course, I was playing baseball at the time. I'm about to graduate from Jackson State in computer science. And remember, I was consumed with a lot of lust at the time. And so,
Mm-hmm.
and and when I mean that, it was, girlfriend after girlfriend, no matter if I was with them 1 month or I was with them 3 months or if I was with them for a year or however long, I was bouncing off each one of them. It was the fact that I never gave myself a chance to heal.
Mm-hmm.
And so it comes to graduation at Jackson State. And I graduated, and the first thing I did was I took off the next day to Texas. Well, God was like, "Nah, ain't nothing out in Texas. Come on back to Jackson. I got a job for you." So, bam, get to come back to Jackson. So this is 2001, and I was approximately around 22, 23 range. So, um, got this job, and first semester or first 6 months I'm there, I'm dating a young lady. Within that first 6 months of my first job after college, I'm dating her, I decide to join Freemasonry. And this when that lust I was telling you about,
Mm-hmm.
it's finna get elevated. I finna open up a whole new Pandora's box. And I'm talking about a whole new Pandora's box of evil. So although I was dating a young lady, we dated for like 3 months. All right. And now I joined Freemason. So now I'm battling with lust, and now I'm battling in the cult, which the cult really opened up doors for many more demonic presence, along with my own lustful sins and passions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So me and the girl broke up, and I'm still on my current job, and then I meet who presumably becomes my very first fiance, my first fiance. So we did well. Of course, she was also, and she was an Eastern Star, and I was Freemason, and we got along together, and we was doing well for about a year. So we was doing well for a year, and then during that year we got engaged. Her family was amazing to me. My family loved her, and during that engagement was something happened. Something took a turn for the worse, and what happened was she ended up getting pregnant while we was engaged. Now we didn't live together at the time. We had rightful age of 23 now. We bought a house. Uh, let's see. We was going to church, although I still didn't know God. And it's coming. Like God said, "Oh yeah." He like, "I'm gonna get you." I'm like, "Hey, do you?" But I'm gonna get you. I said, okay, that's okay. So she gets pregnant. And so eventually I had cut off everything, all engagements. Cut off all engagement. So when everything was cut off, of course she was pregnant and she had a child. Uh, I moved on, and as I moved on, I was hanging with some of my. I wasn't playing baseball anymore. Now I'm past college. I'm playing softball now, and so playing softball, hung out with some close friends from high school, and they play softball with me. Well, eventually, yeah, me and one of my softball friends, we went out. He had a girlfriend, and he wanted me to come out with him. And because she had a friend girl that was single, so we eventually we all went out. Him and her and me meeting this new young lady. Um, and this happened around 2004 now. So you see, I still didn't give myself time. I went from
Mm-hmm.
1 year of being engagement and breaking up. The next year, I'm meeting her, and I really didn't have no time to myself to develop like what happened, the good things. I operated off impulse and emotion, and so I went to. We all went on dates, and then I was interested in her, and she was a very nice lady, young lady, and so eventually we got engaged. So I'm working on my second engagement within a 2 year span. You see,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying? So it was like bam, then bam, and no healing. So this in this situation is very, very illuminating to me. And what I mean by that, this is where God started unveiling the curtain of who he is. And we was engaged for a year. We was gonna of course get married, and it's doing good. And then once again, in the course of our engagement, in our relationship, I start seeing little fungus on my face. I'm like, damn, what is all this fungus? I'm thinking it's fungus, like,
Mm-hmm.
face. So, I was wiping, I was putting antifungal cream on me, and it wouldn't go away. Matter of fact, it started spreading more. And so I was like, man, what is going on? Then, me and my second fiance at the time, we'd go to Jackson State games, and back in the days, Nelly was hitting back then. It's hot in here. And he used to have that band-aid across the eye. You remember back then, or had one on that side or one on that side. And when we go to Jackson State games, I noticed it was spreading even more. And so I was like, something ain't right. And so I went to I didn't pay no mind. I took my shower, I make sure I'm clean, which honestly I wasn't unclean from the heart. You see what I'm saying? But everything was showing up on my skin. And
Mm-hmm.
so it got to the point where I just let it grow and grow, and then eventually got down all the way down to my legs and my genitals, and it was like blistering up. So I'm like, what is going on? I'm walking like a mummy, or the Walking Dead. And then I went to, like I said, I went to 11 doctors. Um, the last one gave me a cortisone shot, and it kind of dried up a little bit. And of course, I told you that my uncle's like, man, you look like a science fiction project, and I was like, I don't know what's going on. And I remember I was laying on the couch, and I told my mom, I said, Mom, I don't know what's going on. The doctors don't know what's happening. And I took after that cortisone shot, and my mom sat there on the couch with me. She said, Vaughn, when your mother said, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do. I didn't even, in my mind, still not knowing God, but he was still about to unveil himself. If I knew God then, I was like, Mom, pray for me. Pray for me. And so, but I didn't. So it got to the point, it got so bad. And when it hit my genitals, I went to a urologist. The urologist referred me to a dermatologist. The dermatologist immediately saw me, and he was like, "We got to directly, admit you to the hospital." Of course, she took a bad part of my skin on my arm and a good part of my skin off my arm, sent it to LSU. Now, of course, I am in the hospital. All right. So through all this time, I was on prednisone. Prednisone, I tapered on. I stayed on prednisone too long during this period. Of course, I'm still in my second engagement. And when I stayed on prednisone too long, it dried and dehydrated my organs. And so when I did make it to the hospital, they was like, we got to get you on some IV like immediately. Because yes, now my skin began to dry up along with my organs, and that wasn't good. You see what I'm saying? So I'm laying in this bed, and the funny part about this, I'm laying in my bed, and I was laying in the bed, and my heart began to open up to God. I had my Bible with me because I didn't know what else to grab at the time. And so in the hospital, I had my Bible, and so someone was speaking to me. Read my word. Pray. And I was like, I started reading while I'm on the IV. Take me a nap, wake up, eat, read, do the same thing again. And of course, my family came to see me in the hospital, but the Freemasons came as well to, see me as well. So I was still connected to them. Mm-hmm. All right. Stayed in the hospital for like a week or so. And until my organs got hydrated, my skin dried up. Got back to normal. And I still, like I said, I still got scar marks from it. And it's funny, most of the scar marks on my arm are circular motion around the wrist. And I have some on my forearm, but the ones you can really see is around the wrist. You can see the dark marks around there. And I was like, wow, this is Christ. And I hear him loud. And so I got out the hospital and I started praying. And of course, yes, I went to church because in order to be a member of Freemason, you have to be in a local church. And so I started going to church. My heart was changing. I started being more passionate about listening to the word of my pastor. I started studying more. Me and my fiance at the time was going to Starbucks, and I have me a book, she have her book, and we was reading the books together. And then my physical body was healed. However, my heart was open to want to be more zealous for who is this Christ? Who is this God? And a lot of stuff I start cutting out. Like I wasn't the type to go out like that, but a lot of stuff I wasn't doing, and I wanted to focus on this Bible. And this is around, as I got healed, the Passion of the Christ came out. And I was looking at the DVD. They had a DVD out on it, and so I had my Bible out, and I was going along with the movie, and it was accurate. I might have to flip from book or to another book, from Matthew or to Luke or something like that, or John. But I was just so intrigued by getting to know this Christ, getting to know this God. And as I was doing that, going through the process, make a long story short, with the second engagement, I started, so we was on the same phone line together, and I started seeing things on the, phone numbers I didn't recognize. And so come to find out, she wasn't doing anything that I know of course, but it was the fact that when I saw that, I still had some old me in me. It was like, when I saw that, I can't trust you. Because I just came out of, remember, engagement 1, right, where she just had a baby on me. even at this particular time, I saw the phone log. I, it went right back to that, and so I cut the engagement off again. And this particular time, when I cut it off, um, she was pregnant. My second engagement was pregnant, and she was pregnant, of course, with my first son, my first child. And and so at that particular time, of course, we didn't work out. My son was born, and so now I'm single and I'm heavily in the church now. I'm going to everything. I'm going to Bible study, men's group. I'm talking to the pastor more, and I found myself just gravitating to understand this Lord. And the funny thing about it, I give her props for my second engagement because she actually helped me see. Fine. I mean, when we was in church, she was helping me. Oh, where's this book at? I didn't know what none of the books was. She was like, it's over here. It's over here. So she did help me understand where the books, certain books, or the passages, the pastor was talking, where were they in the Bible? And I said, okay. So I took all of that, and it helped me after the situation, after the second engagement. And so now I'm single. All right. So this is around 2005. My son was born in 2006. And so I'm around, see, 26, 27-ish. Yeah, about 26, 27-ish. And so I'm still at work. I still work at the same place. And so even on my job now, we doing Bible study during lunch. And so I switched churches. I went to a more uh, Bible Bible based, Christ centered preaching at the time. And so I got in small groups, men's study groups, and then as I started developing and know that there are more books out there to help me understand scripture, more commentary. I was surrounded by a great amount of godly men, and they helped nurture me and teach me. And so, and they know I have a son, and I was single, and so I started doing more search. It got so, I mean, I love those times where I take off from work just to go to the library and study like I was at work. Like it was like 8, 10 hours. I was going there like 3, 4 times a week. Then I go home and still study some more. And I remember one time, and this is where I denounced Freemasonry. And also, it wasn't easy. It was not easy. So I started having these dreams, right? And we talk about dreams and stuff like that, and what is God saying? And I started having these dreams where it was hard for me to wake up. I was in a sleep paralysis. And if you know what sleep paralysis is, like you're sleeping, but you can't wake up. I was like, no, wake up. But within my dreams, you came in and looked at me, you'd be like, oh, he's sleeping peacefully, No, I wasn't. So I was still living with my grandmother at the time. I was asleep. And next thing you know, I had these particular dreams I still remember to this day. And I had a cousin. Before the dreams, I had a cousin. She came to me and ministered to me, and she told me about how, I remember I had Masons all over my room and stuff like that covered. And now I'm becoming a Christian. I'm realizing this is not good. And so, of course, I removed all that stuff out of my room, and it was not over because the spirits were still lingering. They still felt like they had ownership of my soul. And so now I piggyback to I'm a Christian and I'm sleeping. I go to a good church. I'm sleeping. I have my Bible in the bed. And as I'm sleeping, I was seeing demonic presence. It wasn't nothing like, how we see in today's movies and nothing like that. It was more like, I don't know if you remember, I think it was Conan the Barbarian, the first one. And Conan was in a sleep mode and he had his woman he was with, and the demons was trying to take his soul. It was like red spirits going like this.
Mm-hmm.
And so while I was sleeping, it was something similar to that. It was like they they wouldn't allow me to wake up, and I had a iguana at the time, a long cage with my iguana in it, and it's like they pent my spirit next to, I was like this, next to my iguana cage, and they wouldn't let me go. And so I'm asleep, but I'm awake. I'm conscious. And so I was like, let me go. And I was trying to fight them, let me go. And the funny part was, as I tried to fight them off, they got stronger in pressing me against the cage, my spirit against the cage. And I was scared then because I was like, I might not wake up out of this. And so while I was like that, scripture popped in my head. It was like God spoke to me. Remember, it's not by your might, not by your strength, but not by your power, but it's by my strength and by my power. And so consciously, I was like, Jesus, I plead the blood of Jesus. Jesus, help me. Jesus, Jesus, I want to serve you. Please help. I was just screaming out. And as I was doing that in my sleep, which it felt like a long time, like it felt like I was in this dream for a long time. And it was so funny. I kept pleading, Jesus, help me. I plead the blood of Jesus. I love you. And next thing you know, I'll never forget. I still see it to this day. It was like, how you light up sparkle in a firework.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Mm-hmm.
a big sparkle just come down, just I don't know if it was a angel or it was God's power, but whatever it was, that light, that sparkle it fled all those spirits away, and I woke up. It was like, whoa, what was that? I looked at the clock. I said, wow, that was only like a 10-minute sleep. All that in 10 minutes. And my heart was like, I was, shoot, I got my Bible, I got my journal. I started journalizing. I said, what happened? Okay. I started writing what happened. And I still have this journal to this day. But everything what happened. So I can't give you specifics today, but in that journal, it was fresh. So it kept happening for the couple days, and I kept calling on Jesus because I was scared to go in my room. I didn't want to sleep in my bed. And shoot, my heart racing. I'm telling this story.
Bringing back flashbacks.
Man, yes. And so I slept on the couch a couple days, and I go back in my room, and it happened again. Sleep paralysis happened again. And so I had my Bible on the bed, and in my conscious state of my sleep, I try to grab my Bible, and it was like demonic presence still there, and it kicked the Bible off the bed. And I said, Jesus, I need you. I pleaded the blood of Jesus. I was screaming, blood of Jesus, Jesus. And they just went away. They just went away. And so after that situation, it lasted maybe a week or so. And I talked to my cousin on the phone who shared the gospel with me. And she was like, and she's out of Massachusetts. She was like, you need to oil your room down. You need to cleanse it from all this demonic stuff. And so I cleansed the room and I prayed. And now I didn't have this sleep paralysis anymore. And so I sleep back in my room, and people say, go to your prayer closet, go to your secret place. And so I go in my closet, get on my knees, and I just pray. It be dark. I'll just be praying, praying, praying. And so that was clear. However, I was still in Freemasonry. So this is where I got all this stuff out of my room. I gotta go back to this lodge, and I finna go and check it out, see what's happening. So now I have new lenses, I have a new heart. And so I went back, and I was like, I was sitting down in the meeting. I said, I'm calling this man worshipful master. And my king is Christ now. You see, it wasn't like that before. But now I'm coming in with a new heart, and I'm seeing with new lenses, and I'm saying, yes, sir, worshipful master. I was like, oh no. By that time I had a little pamphlet in my hand, right? So I had this pamphlet in my hand, and I was going, to the brothers whispering, like, hey, what you know about the gospel, Christ? And they'd look at it and be like, yeah, whatever, I was like, this is my last time here. So it was like, yes, they can go to church, but did they know Christ? And so I started seeing the difference. I was like, nah, this is my last time here. And so my last time, so I started searching on, I think it was, at this particular time, it's 2006. It was 2006, and started searching and looking up people who online who used to be with Masons. So I joined this group called Ex-Masons for Jesus. And I written to them like, man, I used to be a Mason. I was putting down scriptures on everything, like blah, 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 and stuff like that. And they responded, and they commended me. They said, we're going to keep you in prayer, brother. We're going to keep you encouraged. And so I was like, thank you. And so now I went to God. I repented. I said, Lord, I denounced this organization. I stopped being active, stopped paying my dues. And so now I felt myself free from that, right? So, all right, 2007 hit. I'm in the church, and it's no more dreams, no more. But as I was deepening in the gospel, I spent time, I wanted to know more about what happened during that what was God saying during that sleep paralysis moment, and so I got to share a book with you, and so I have one of the books right here, which gave me some ideas of what happened during that time period, and it's called The Power. Can you see it? Yeah, The Power of Your Dreams, and basically it's by Pastor Stephanie Okafor. And this book enlightened me on some things. Of course, it's really good to help me understand what God was communicating to me, because this book is a guide to hearing and understand how God speaks while you sleep. So this is a very powerful book right here, and I'll talk about that later. Now, so during 2007, the church, they was trying their best. You're a single man, you have a son, you redeemed. Now, we don't want you single. You can't be walking around here single. We're gonna try to fix you up with a Christian young lady. And I ain't gonna lie, I was still dating people, and I was trying to bring them to the church. Now it's so funny. Now I'm bringing these ladies to the church, and due to the fact that the church I was going to was multi-ethnic, predominantly white, they just wasn't feeling the, it wasn't like the Baptist when you go in there and be like,
right,
it wasn't like that.
Right. Sound like opera.
Yeah, singing hymns and stuff like that. So, so eventually, I come up on meeting my first wife, and she was a missionary. All right, we got married in 2008, and so right now I'm around. Oh, 2008. I was around what 30 years old at this particular time. 29, 29 going to 30. That's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got we was engaged. We wanted to do it the right way. We was engaged for a year. We never had sex doing premarital sex. We wanted to do it the right way. And I remember asking her father, and I asked her father, I want to uh, get married to your daughter. He said, "You sure about that?" I was like, "Yes, yes." Even though me and her, she was very religious, and
Mm-hmm.
I was growing in my relationship, and she was a missionary, so she's been out there. She saw things, she done things, she taught things. I was still growing, and I was like, "Yes." And he was like, "Okay." He said, I accept it. And I was like, "Okay, good." So by that time, I proposed, got engaged, we got married. We had a big wedding. I think we had like 10 groomsmen, and she had 10 bridesmaids. Big wedding. And so we got married. Okay, I was 30. I turned 31. I just probably just turned 31. And what happened was, of course, before we got married, we had premarital counseling.
Mm-hmm.
And the premarital counseling was so awesome. I was like, man, we ready. We motivated, we encouraged. It was my first marriage. This is her first marriage. And what happened was after 3 months, we started having disagreements. Just think about it. She was older than me. I was just around 30-ish, 31. She was around 37, 38. And so she was older than me. And so after the third month, that marriage took a big dive. It was so big. Oh my goodness. We couldn't communicate right. She couldn't understand my language as a 30-year-old. She about to be 40. It was just, the communication was off. And that's why I say, even though we was engaged for a year, we really didn't spend any good time with each other. She didn't go to the movies. We only thing we probably did was go out to eat or go out to Starbucks and talk, and then talk on the phone. That was it. Maybe go to the reservoir. That was it. So I really didn't know her like in a sense of how did she live at home.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that began to open up a Pandora's box, a evil Pandora's box in our marriage, the beginning of our marriage. So we got to arguing. I mean, it was bad, bad. We would argue. I mean, it was every week, every month. And so we went to postmarital counseling. We went to marriage retreats. We even talked to married couples who've been married 15, 20, 30 years. And then we had pastoral counseling. We had Christian counseling. We had psychological counseling. And we had all this stuff. And it still didn't work out. So we met with the senior pastor at the time. And he said, "Levon, I've never seen nothing like this in my life. Like, we throwing the book at y'all, and y'all cannot get it together in the house." I said, "No." It was like she wanted her way, but I'm trying to share why I want it this way. And it was a battle back and forth. It got to the point I slept in the other room, and she slept in the master bedroom. And then it got to the point. Now I'm still in my 30s now. I'm 30, 31. So we get to arguing. So I'm emotionally charged up. And so I commit. infidelity. I slept on it. And I did it multiple times, of course, with the same person. Multiple times. So we had to go back to, we was in our we was in our second year marriage, still going to our third year, and we still having the same issues. And so we had pastoral counseling with the assistant pastor. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna tell him. You know what? I don't love her. I was just that emotionally mad. I do not love her. She right here, pastor right here. I do not love her. And matter of fact, I cheated on her. I said that in front of her and the pastor, and they was like blown away, like, whoa. I like, yes. And it was quiet. And so she was stunned. He was stunned. I was like, I just give up, man. This ain't for me. And it was so bad. He was like, well, the pastor was like, this is grounds for divorce. Do you want to divorce him? And she said, no. I'll forgive him. So I was like, oh. So we got back to the home, and she was emotional, Charles. She was emotionally, very much crying. How can you cheat on me? Tell me the details, everything. And I told her, and I wanted to, I'm making work because this is my wife, but I didn't. And it's something telling me she's still gonna be trying to control me, and that's how I felt. Now she probably wasn't that way. That's how I felt at the time. So we get back into an argument again, and we start arguing again, and it got to the point where I'll tell people here and there that I was in the church, and it was like, nah, it can't be like that. I'm like, yeah, it is like that. And it got to the point, it was so dark, and I felt like nobody believed me. I want to commit suicide. I said, what's the point of living? No, I was like, I was so gone mentally. I was like, what's the point? Now remember, I'm in the church. I preached at basketball ministry. I did Sunday school. I was a deacon at the time. I preached at rehabilitation centers. I also played softball, and so I stopped all that after infidelity. I had to stop all that, and rightly so. And so I was like, ugh. Nobody believed me. So one day I said, I'm finna record our argument. And I recorded multiple arguments we had. Yes. And she didn't know it. I had my phone laid down, and she, once we start getting into it, I'll hit record and have my phone face down. And I said, if nobody gonna believe me, they gonna hear it for themselves. And so I did that. And then one day I was with my mentor and his wife, and I was with, I think, my mom and my cousin at the time. So it was like I lined them up and I said, y'all, I gotta let y'all hear something. And I played it, and you should see the look across their faces on the board as they was listening to her. They was like, oh, you should see all their faces like, I said, I told y'all I've been dealing with this. And it was like our spirits clash now. Our communication was not on the same accord. And it wasn't just her. I responded very mean. Remember, I committed adultery on her. And so I was in the wrong myself. And I just said, hey, y'all, if y'all don't understand what I'm going through now, this is over for me. I already got suicide in my mind. It's over. But they was like, my mentor was like, oh no, we finna call the church. And so my mentor called the church like, hey, I remember he calling, speaking to the assistant pastor like, men can have verbal abuse too. That's key. You see that in today's time, especially
especially heavy down.
Yeah, what you think about today's time with men being verbal abused?
Um, I think that women have taken on the worst parts of man
Mm-hmm.
with the masculine energy or
Okay.
the matching energy. But what you're doing is bringing those demons into you. And I think a lot of people aren't consciously aware of that. That when you're matching somebody's energy, you're bringing that demon, what they're fighting with,
Mm.
onto your spirit. And I don't think people grasp that. And so, like, I have seen women like be so vulgar. I'm like, clutch my pearls. What?
Who's like,
What? What? Yes, clutch my pearls. Because this is the thing. You cannot sit here and say, I love this man. And in the same breath, fuck you, bitch ass nigga, you ain't shit. Sorry, there's a mosquito in my face. You know what I'm saying? Like, those those two don't coincide with one another. What you're saying about how you love him and he's this and he's that. Well, why you disrespect him in the manner that you do? Because if he would have turned around and disrespect you in that manner, whoo, you go cry to all your friends and your mama and your daddy, your whole family. Now everybody has this nasty outlook on this man. But like, I just don't know why women. I don't know if it's the I'm independent and I'm strong. You can be all those things
Mm-hmm.
without demasculating a man or any other human being, because that's what you're doing. And if you don't want, the whole saying is don't do unto others that you don't want done to you.
Right. Exactly. So no, you absolutely correct. And so as I come to a close on this one, my first marriage, what happened eventually, our marriage just didn't work out, and she eventually left. They told me not to leave the domicile, don't leave the home. She eventually ended up leaving. We filed for irreconcilable differences, and which is in that particular church is not a grounds for divorce,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, what happened was they was trying to get me to reconcile with her and try to make it work. My mind was like, mm-mm. I was like, no. And so what happened was, of course, I couldn't do none of my ministries no more. I eventually got expelled from the church in 2012. I got expelled from the church. The end of 2012, the divorce was finalized. Divorce was finalized that same year, and that right there, I was like, I felt empty. Like now I'm living in a home, a big home, no wife. I'm struggling on bills. My job at the time I was at for 11 years, the contract canceled. So I'm like, I was in a dark place.
Mm-hmm.
At this time, I began bodybuilding. So I found my outlet in working out. You see what I'm saying? Just to kind of calm my mental state down, because I've been in a place where when I wasn't in marriage, we went to get psychological treatment, right? And so we had to take a psychological test that the church paid for. And I remember the one of the elders came to me and he whispered to me, he said, LeVon, don't take this test for her or to get to know her. He said, take this test so you can get to know who you are. I said, yes, sir. The church paid for the test for her, for me, and I got the results back, which I will share in the next podcast. And the results was like crazy, and it was accurate. So that would happen to me from the ages from 21 to 31ish, going to my 32-year-old self, and I was a that first 5 years of being a Christian. Oh my goodness, let me tell you, it was hard. It was hard, and it's still hard. Don't get me wrong, but
Mm-hmm.
now your mind is and heart is opening up to the scriptures, and you seeing what you don't want. God revealing what you shouldn't be doing. However, we got to
Mm-hmm.
continually keep our hearts pure and keep repenting and ask for Him to increase faith. And I repent and ask for faith. Lord, give me faith, forgiveness. I ask for forgiveness, and so that's where the Christian line is like this. It's like up and down. It's seasons up and down. And so I didn't understand that then as a new believer. And so that was it for me from 21 to around 31, 32-ish. And so as I conclude this, I want to share a couple things from this book again. Um, The Power of Your Dreams by Stephanie Okafor. It's a great book. And so basically, just to give a quick summary, I'm not going to be too long on it. It talks about this book is anchored in biblical truth, and the power of your dreams answers your most perplexing question about dreams, such as: are all dreams from God? How do I know if my dreams contain a message from God? How do I interpret my dreams? And do nightmares have any meaning? And people have questions about them. Even my son now, he called me on a weekly basis. Like, Dad, I had a dream. I had a dream. I had a dream. I was like, son, you about to sound like Martin Luther King in this thing. So in chapter 4 of the book, the source of your dreams, it's pretty. This particular chapter was very interesting. I'm a read a couple lines and then I'm gonna conclude. Um, One of the lines is about it states about the nature of self, and it says the natural inclination of the soul is toward the ways of the flesh. This innate tendency is why children can instinctively be deceitful without being taught. You mean the innate tendency is why children can instinctively be deceitful without being taught, because these kids are battling what they don't understand. They battling with a sin nature from birth.
Mm-hmm.
All
Mm-hmm.
right. And here's the kicker. Satan loves when we allow our flesh to dominate our lives. Satan loves it when we allow our flesh to dominate our lives because it makes it easier for him to lead us away from our intended destiny. So the Apostle Paul recognized the struggle and lived by the principle of dying to self daily. And here's the thing: God cautions us about being led by dreams that are evident of the lust of our flesh. He identifies such dreams as dreams which you cause to be dreamed. He identifies such dreams as dreams which you cause to be dreamed because their source is not from God, but from within ourselves. So remember, earlier I was battling with the lust, and the lust was still there, but now I'm battling with, at one point, suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And one time during my first marriage, I was battling with lust again because
Mm-hmm.
we was battling so much we wasn't having sex. And I had that hormone at 30, my hormones, like, so I went outside of my marriage. And so all these dreams I'm having at that particular time, it was due to what I was exposed to from yonder, yonder, that's country, but from a young child all the way up to now, and I mean up to then, and that's when I was like, hey, this book is powerful. So that's why we have to die to self daily. We have to kill the flesh, kill a sin, or sin will be killing you. And so that's my story from all the way up to 30s, my young 30s. What you think, Trace?
I mean, it's very powerful. One,
Praise God.
you've explained what you went through in regards to your form of leprosy, because that's exactly what it was, a
Yeah.
form of leprosy.
Yeah.
You being unclean at that time. Like, I feel that's very powerful for you to share. Excuse me,
Mm-hmm.
for you to share, because you have a lot of people out here who are battling autoimmune diseases.
Yes.
And they don't know what's happening with their bodies and why it's happening, nor do some of them even try to think about or figure it out and do the research. Like you said, it took you a long time before you went to the doctor.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I hope that part of your life has other people looking at like what's going on with my body. Like, why am I having these outbreaks? Why is my skin a certain way? Why, whatever it may be. Um, Even if it's a STI or a STD that you don't know you have, I feel that you should regularly get checked. I know it's once a year now that they're doing, but you better go get checked. Yeah, for a woman, they only offer
I
one
mean,
pap
like,
smear a year. So I'm a firm believer. You better go get checked every 3 months because
yeah,
one,
3 months.
I understand you might be in a relationship, you might have a spouse, you don't know what that person's doing outside of you.
Yeah, that's a good
God
point.
forbid that they're doing something outside and putting themselves in harm's way and then coming back to you. God forbid that happens, but it does. So it is your due diligence to always protect yourself and make sure that you are up to par with your health. Um, which in Black communities, going to the doctor is not something that's we're about to go do this.
Yeah,
We gonna go here. We gonna do this. Now,
yeah.
see me on the other hand, and I didn't talk about this. I'm not gonna say sickly because I'm not sick. I have always been my mother's healing child.
Okay.
So from the age, I would say from the age of 6, all the well, it didn't stop until 32. But all the way up to the age of 6, I was always in the hospital. Autoimmune disease, profusely vomiting, pooping at the same time. It was just like waterfalls coming out both ends. What's happening?
Stuff. Stuff.
Drastically losing weight, looking like a skeleton, couldn't hold down food for weeks. Had to be hooked to, I was in hospitals for weeks at a time, hooked to IVs because I couldn't eat. So they had to pump fluids in me and put food tubes in. Then they came up with, I mean, I went through everything, okay? My butt being checked by, ain't nothing like you used to lay in bed and doctor used to lift your legs up, stick their finger in your butt. Whoa!
Ooh, tell me
Excuse
about
me.
that.
Excuse me. And this
Awesome.
was as a child. You know
Wow.
what I'm saying? Yeah, this
Shoot.
is a child. Like, you going from my vagina and then you taking your glove off and going in my butt. It's like, Lord Jesus. You know what I'm saying? And so it was just like, it was like that all the way through. Then there was at one point, they still didn't know what was wrong with me. Still didn't know. I've had every test. Kaiser Permanente in California. I told you they have a locker. They got drawers on me because I was in the hospital at least once a month for a week or two at a time. And then they would send me home with, all these medications and all this good stuff. But it got to a point, I think, 17. Now, I have always been given Compazine for nausea. Well, this time, Compazine took a different turn. Okay, I can't call it lockjaw, but it shifted my jaw to where the top of my mouth went this way, the bottom of my mouth went this way. It was ripping my jaw, like literally ripping my jaw apart. The ambulance came. They did not take me to the hospital. I had to call my mama. I had the stick that the dentist put in, or the doctor. I had one of those faced this way to hold my mouth open because it was shutting down and going opposite ways. So I called her like, the ambulance came. They didn't do anything for me. I need you to come take me to the hospital. Because one, I had just got out the hospital and I was staying home because I can't eat. I can't do anything. And I'm at home trying to recover. So she takes me to the hospital. The ER doctor's like, if you didn't bring her in, she was going to die. Like her mouth was going to split open and she was going to die. Crazy, right? And then of course, we still continue with the same thing, profusely vomiting, profusely pooping, and don't know what's coming from. They said I didn't have no parasites because they checked to see if I had cancer at the time. I didn't have cancer, but in 23, I had ovarian cancer. I was always prone to having major cysts in my uterus, always. But they did a biopsy, and never at that time it was never anything cancerous. So we all know 23 cancer, had surgery, blah blah blah. I got cancer again 32, and I got to stop there because I haven't went into my stage of being 32. But I got cancer again at 32, ovarian cancer, because it's the one cancer that loves to come back and say hello.
Yeah, yeah.
And I will tell people, it's all about what you put in your body.
Yeah.
It is what you put in your body that kills you. So, of course, then I didn't know that. I wasn't taught that. It was here, eat whatever, feel good, have a great time. So, yeah, being sick, I definitely know about it. And I told you and everybody else before, like, I was always angry at God because it was like, for real, my body, when it's gonna stop? I'm tired. I am tired. Like, whew, can you pick somebody else? And I know that's wrong to say.
No, they won't pick nobody else, no.
I know he can't pick nobody else, but at that, from being a child going through teenage, adult, it's just like, Jesus. And you talked about suicide.
Yeah.
You had thoughts. Well, I had thoughts and I acted on it.
Okay.
I took pills.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
The Lord said, I'm gonna let you sleep. I slept for about 2-3 days.
Wow.
Didn't die. And I took enough to kill me.
Right.
Because I was tired. Like, I was mentally, emotionally, physically tired of being the healing child. Because it felt like I can't catch a break. Like, it's no point in my life, not a month or two that went by where, okay, we don't got to be in the hospital. We can breathe. No, it was every single month. Every single month. I was just like what? And at that time, it's like, as a child, I wasn't doing nothing. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, did I do something? So I was very angry at God. Very, very. And I've known God let me not say that. God has always been in my life from the beginning. Due to my but I didn't know him.
Right.
I didn't know him. But God has, like, my grandfather and my grandparents were here from Mississippi, Durant. When I say you went to the church from when you woke up until you went to sleep, Monday through Sunday, you ate dinner there, you had lunch at church. I was laying in the pew like this, like, God, are they done talking? When's gonna stop? You see what I'm saying? Like, so I've always been in the church. Now, my mother didn't attend church like that. Do I believe she believed in God? Yes. But she didn't attend church, nor did my grandparents, her parents. So it was like, but was I close to God? Absolutely not. I didn't get close to God until my 30s.
Gotcha.
So I could understand certain things that you were talking about, being the healing child, having the suicidal thoughts, but I acted on mine because you know what I'm saying, being in failed relationships. So yeah, I get it. I completely do.
Yeah. So it's man, it was a time where I was doing all this. It's like I was doing all this for the Lord. I was in church. I was doing all these ministries, but I didn't have my home together. So we got a divorce, and then that led to me being a divorced man now for the first time. So everyone, thank you so much for listening to my story. Next up is Tracy L. Swift. This is going to be 4A coming up, which will be from your 30 to 35 age range. We will keep these segments going, and I'm enjoying the process of this and getting everything out. And thank you all for listening. For my co-host, Tracy L. Miss Swift, I'm Levon D. Lane III. Grace and peace, and we out.